In today's video, an expansive condominium market update where we look at 2020 versus 2021 prices and take a look into October. Let's get to it. Hello everyone, this is Sam from SaberiSixRealEstate and Remax Realtron Realty Inc. As always, back with another video for you guys here today. In today's video, we're going to go through another weekly condo market update. But before we get into that, feel free to subscribe, comment, rate, and review. Your support in that regard is greatly appreciated, but you're not obliged to do so whatsoever. And you can find my contact information in the description box with regards to my Gmail, my Instagram, and my office. Feel free to get in touch with me with any questions you may have with anything discussed in this video, previous videos, or if you have any general inquiries with regards to the Toronto/GTA real estate market. Now, first, we're going to take a look at condominium sales and other numbers. Basically, the condominium market from January to August in 2021 as compared in the same period in 2020, basically a year-over-year analysis. This is based on the latest Remax Condominium Report, but thereafter, towards the end of the video, I'm going to discuss so far into October. Now, at the time of recording of this video, it is October 20th, so we have only 19 days full of sales data to go through, right? Because they both give different perspectives. When we look at from January to August, right? So that's around 8 months full of sales data. We see year over year, things are looking pretty good for the condominium market. So in the long run, relative to our timeframes we're discussing, this is the long run. In the long run, the condominium market year over year has shown tremendous growth and a upward trend in terms of number of sales and prices. However, when we minimize the time frame, so no longer looking from January to August, when we look at just in the month of October and compare October numbers to September, we see that things are either staying pretty steady or in certain cases, prices are dipping. So let's get into this a little bit further, starting with year to date. Because when we look at 2021 with regards to the GTA and Toronto condominium market, we see a 7% growth in terms of sale price year over year. So once again, comparing the time frame of January to August of 2021 to January to August of 2020, we see a 7% increase in average sold price. Where in the average sold price in 2021, and this is across the GTA, right? Average sold price comes in at $688,000. Now, once again, that's a 7% increase, and that's in terms of sale price. In terms of the number of transactions, the comparison shows a far more impressive and truly tremendous growth in the number of transactions, meaning sales. Wherein in total, thus far in 2021, and by thus far, once again, we're looking at January to August of 31st, so pretty much September, before the 1st of September, the total number of sales was around 30,000. That is a 70%, to be precise, 71.1%, but 70% increase year over year. So prices are up a fair amount, nothing truly world staggering, but sales are up a lot. Let me break this down a little bit further. The reason, once again, prices are not up as much as you would assume is because you have to understand this takes into account the entirety of the GTA. And the GTA is a very large and expansive area. Thus, as a result, there's certain pockets of the GTA, certain municipalities of the GTA that are not really known for their condominium markets and don't really have an impressive array of condominiums. As a result, they somewhat carry down the average. Thus, as a result, if we were to take a look at the city of Toronto without the GTA, this increase in price would probably be much more than the 7% increase that we are taking a look at. In terms of why we're seeing a 7% increase, and which is a fair amount, right? But nothing more than 7% is because you have to take into account this accounts for almost 9 months, but to be precise, 8 months of transactions. So as a result, the recent months where the condominium market has somewhat plateaued, not dipped in prices, right? Just to be clear, but plateaued a little bit, are accounted for in these numbers, right? Whereas if you were to take from, for instance, February to mid-May and just take a look at February to mid-May, prices then were much higher. And this is something we'll get into a little bit further, where in the fall market thus far in 2021 has disappointed a bit on the condominium front. And then we break that down a little bit deeper into just October, not in the fall. Now, when we get into the number of transactions, well, the reason the transactions are up by a factor of 70% is because, simply put, last year there was an oversupply of condominiums. And that oversupply did enter into 2021. It didn't just stop in 2020, it entered into 2021. But that oversupply issue was into 2021 far less impactful, because the oversupply issue was correcting itself slowly into 2021, where maybe January was one of the last few months that the condominium market was truly at its bottom as a result of the oversupply. Thus, it's quite fair to say that oversupply thus far into 2021, with the exception of, once again, maybe January a bit, was not an issue. And as a result of the oversupply that was an issue in 2020, transactions were few and far between relative to the city of Toronto. Because there was a oversupply, not enough demand. As a result, a lot of listings either got terminated, got converted back into long-term rental options, or if end users were selling, terminated or suspended, and they probably held on to their selling until 2021, which they would have done. And if they would have done that, they did the smart thing. As I said, way back in 2020, wait until 2021 to sell. Now, the strongest sales growth, according to this report, was purported to be in Peel region and York region. Respectively, in Peel, sales grew 66%, whereas in York region, sales grew 122%. And now, if you've watched my channel for a long time, you know how bullish I am on Richmond Hill as a condominium market that's still, in my opinion, quite undervalued right now. But part of York region is, of course, once again, Richmond Hill, but also Vaughan, which has its strong condominium options as well, and it's a growing market as well. A lot of development has come into Vaughan, not just in terms of condominiums in of themselves, but obviously the new subway line, right? And portions of Markham are also seeing tremendous growth, and Markham, Vaughan, and Richmond Hill are all part of York region. So this does not surprise me whatsoever. So the numbers clearly indicate to us that year to date, once again from January 1st to August 31st, the condominium market year over year has once again showed a increase in both in terms of prices and sales and strength. Condominium market has rebounded. However, that's in the long term. Now, as I said, let's get into the short term, where we're going to take a look at condominium prices thus far into October. Now, once again, at the time of recording of this video, it's October 20th. So we only have 19 days full of sales data. And now we're going to just look at the city of Toronto, wherein we're going to segment it by downtown, Midtown, and North York. Downtown is designated by C1 and C8 in my search. And once again, and in contrast to previous numbers, these are my own numbers that I did my own research for on this channel. In my professional practice, I always use a combination of both. But downtown, I designated as C1 and C8. If you don't know what that is, there's a link to the TREB maps in the description box. So feel free to check all these C's and see where they correlate to. But downtown, C1, C8. Midtown, I put as C3, C4, and C10, and North York as C6, C7, C14, and C15. Let's start with North York. We're in thus far in October, right, into 2021, October of 2021, according to the condominium market in Toronto and the North York condominium market, we actually see a drop in prices, where we see the average sold price coming in at $668,000. This is based on 157 transactions. And here we actually see a drop in prices. That's right. Thus far, according to the condominium market within the city of Toronto, more specifically North York, this represents a drop when we compare it to September, the same period in September. So September 1st to September 19th, the average sold price was $675,000. Based on more transactions, based on around 166 transactions. We went from an average sold price of $675,000 based on 166 transactions to an average sold price of $668,000 based on 150 or so transactions. It dipped both in terms of the average sold price and the number of sales. And September itself, by the way, was a drop from August, wherein the average sold price in the same area in August was $679,000. So a $4,000 drop into September, and now around a $7,000 drop into October. And this is what I mean, that the fall market has underperformed, especially North York. North York has especially underperformed, has disappointed in terms of market activity in prices into October and overall the fall market in terms of the Toronto condominium market in 2021. Now, as to why North York has underperformed, and I've mentioned this in the previous videos, it's truly because C15 and C6 are dragging the averages down. In my opinion, Central North York, which is C7 and C14 around the Yonge Sheppard, Yonge and Finch area, Bayview and Sheppard, Bayview and Finch, Bathurst, the more central North York areas are much better. And when we isolate Central North York away from C15 and C6, we see the market usually is much stronger and represents and reflects much better numbers. I actually did this a couple of weeks ago, where I saw when we take into account for the entirety of North York, prices have gone down, but when we just isolate C7 and C14, prices have gone up. And if you've watched this channel, you know that I'm not a big fan of, you know, Sheppard and Don Mills area, Sheppard and Leslie area. There was too much inventory that came onto the market at the same time. A lot of the builds there are not up to snuff, in my opinion. I'm not a fan of a lot of buildings there. Not to say you won't be able to find your decent options, of course you will, but overall, generally speaking, better avoid it if possible. But you know, the situation is not as dire as it is in North York, because when we take a look at Midtown now, so we go from North York to Midtown, which I designated once again as C3, C4, and C10. The average sold price in October is around $789,000. This is a $4,000 improvement month over month, wherein in the same period in September, the average sold price was $785, right? So we went from $785 to $789. But the transactions have dropped, going from 55 in the same period to 49. And a lot of this Midtown activity is driven by Yonge and Eglinton. That's really a large portion and a large share of this Midtown Toronto condo market is dependent on Yonge and Eglinton. Of course, Yonge and Lawrence as well. But as we went through previously, Yonge and Eglinton, despite it being a, you know, in the constant state of construction, holds up relatively well and has held up relatively well. Once again, despite the constant state of construction that it seems to be in. But even though all the prices have gone up $4,000, it's still, you know, a tempered increase, right? Nothing too radical. But it obviously much healthier into October than the case is with North York. Now let's move on to downtown Toronto, which I've designated as C1 and C8. Here the situation is somewhere in the middle. It's almost quite even to where it was in September, because according to the downtown Toronto condo market thus far in October, the average sold price is $807,000, wherein the average sold price in the same period in September, according to the downtown Toronto condo market, was $808,000. So a drop of $1,000. I always say that's basically nothing. You can think of it pretty much as the same, right? $1,000 drop in average price, you know, that comes down to one or two transactions that could have oversold or undersold, right? You can't really make up too much of it, so we can think of it practically for our purposes as pretty much staying even. Because within downtown Toronto, the increase occurred from the jump from August to September. That's where the increase in prices that I projected occurred. But I also projected an increase from September to October, which has not occurred, right? So thus far in October, well, according to the average prices, once again, seems relatively even. And now it will be interesting to break this down by bedroom number to see how prices there pan out. My personal suspicions are that if you were to break them down by bedroom number, you would find that 1+1s would be performing better month over month than the other options. Not to say the other options will be performing very poorly, but if I were to guess, according to what I see every day and the numbers I look at every day, I would probably have to say that 1+1s would be the condominium type that would actually show an increase. If you are a seller of a condominium, of course, everything else being equal, you're not going bankrupt, you know, you haven't gotten divorced, most everything else being equal, if you can afford to wait until 2022 to sell, I think that's a very good option. And this applies to downtown Toronto condo sellers and North York Toronto condo sellers. There are so many sellers that I'm in touch with in North York, in Midtown, in downtown, in Richmond Hill even. And for those who are in North York and in downtown, I have told them the fall market has shown an increase, but that increase mainly occurred August to September. Thus far, things have been pretty even. Of course, we can take a look at the numbers from November and December, but my suspicions are that it's better to probably wait until the new year. Once again, it's very difficult to predict prices, but I think it's a very fair projection to say to wait until 2022 or as close as possible to 2022. Look, there's several trends in the favor of landlords and sellers of downtown and midtown and overall Toronto condominiums waiting until 2022. According to the latest condominium rental report that I read personally, vacancy rates are quite down. The rental market in terms of rental price, lease rates are going up. They're actually close to pre-worldwide event levels, where in the third quarter or the fourth quarter of 2019, that's where they were at all-time highs, and we're slowly reaching back towards where we were pre-worldwide event, if you know what I'm referring to. So the fact that vacancy rates are going down, leases are going up, both in terms of the number of transactions and rates, and also more and more people are going to return to Toronto and downtown Toronto. A lot of offices have already opened up, but there has been a fair amount of offices that have not opened up. So we're going to see a further influx of demand coming into the city of Toronto, coming into downtown Toronto. And for these combinations of reasons, on top of what we've seen with the plateauing of prices into October into downtown, in certain cases dropping into North York, I think it's a very, very fair advice to give to sellers to wait as close as possible to 2022. Obviously, we're going to keep our eyes on the numbers on a monthly basis to see how November performs. But my personal projections are the closer you wait to 2022, the better. For certain people in North York, I think you have to actually wait a bit longer. Anyways, this is Sam from Saberi Real Estate, Remax Realtron Realty. Thank you very much for watching. Stay safe and stay tuned. Thank you.